All right, so this video is going to be about why I think fantasy was a bust. Um, Let me drink a little bit of my wine here. Oh yeah, okay. So, why I think it was a bust? Well, really, it was marketing. Okay. Now, this is not a side effect of the way the game was played at all. This had everything to do with Games Workshop's ability to market. Now, as far as I know, there aren't that many video games for fantasy. There are only two of them come to mind right now, and they're not recent. Well, one recent, and there was one older one that came out back in 2007, I believe it was. There might have been something else, but I know this sounds like a dead horse, me beating on a dead horse, but at the same time, I have to do something in the interim before I get to play some Kings of War games. Since the store near where I live, they decided to have an escalation league. And that's not a bad having an escalation league, but they decided to have an escalation league in January. So, and then no one is coming out to play any games until, I guess, January. But anyway, I digress. Why was their marketing off? The problem is Games Workshop didn't realize the role of communication in the process of cultural diffusion needed for fantasy mass battles to be a success. Meaning they did not advertise, in short, because in order for you to, let's say it like this, okay, Games Workshop made the product. Now it costs money to make the product. You have to build the molds. You have to have the computer. You have to have the, I forgot the program they use to actually make plastic models. But you have to have all that in play. You have to have distributors. You have to have trucks. You don't have to have trucks, but you do have to pay people to drive the trucks in order to get your product to the stores and to put it on the shelves. You have to talk to distributors. You have to do all this stuff. And everybody in that chain has to get paid. So once you do all of this, if you don't sell the product, it becomes a liability. You actually lost money. Now, in order for you to turn this around in order to make profit, you actually have to advertise. And I mean, you have to advertise to people other than the people that you already have. Okay, you have to advertise to a base that you don't already have. Now, Games Workshop has done this in the past. They have they've made video games, a lot of video games. Now, the video games, they are actually a tool for advertisement. But I'm going to get to that point later. Now, we're going to go back to the communication. Now, communication not only has to be done for the product to sell, it also has to be done for the product to actually keep selling. Meaning you have to stay in communication with the people that you already have under your belt, the clients that you already have under your belt. You have to keep advertising and marketing to these people so they can keep buying, so they can keep feeling wanted, so they can keep buying your product. Now, if they don't feel wanted, they're not going to buy your product, especially when they buy a product and then it's like, you bought the product, all right, you know what, whatever, we could just walk away now. We don't have to give you any more. Now, we don't have to give you any more enticement. We don't have to baby you anymore. We don't have to pamper you, because you do have to pamper your clients. Now, when I bought a Fiat about 4 years ago, and the thing I noticed about when I bought the Fiat, they took my picture and everything. They got a little stand and everything like that where everybody's picture is up there. They called every month. How's your Fiat? How's it doing? Yeah, here's a picture of some Nurgle Blight Kings that I bought. Actually, I bought them recently just because the store owner was a friend of mine and he had this box of Blight Kings that have been up there since, I don't know, been up there since February, I think. So I decided to buy them because I thought the models looked cool. Anyway, the Fiat dealership kept calling and asking how my Fiat was doing, asking how I felt about it, and all this stuff. And then they just kept marketing to me, even though I already spent $14,000 with them. That's what you have to do in order to make a product sell. If you here's another example from Fiat. Now, Fiat is a car that has been jumping around from country to country, manufacturer to manufacturer, but it was only recently that people actually started paying attention to it. Why? Because before, no one really advertised it. Heck, they even sold the Fiat in Russia. They actually had the Russians making Fiats for a little bit. And also Nissan, I think it was Nissan, I'm not sure. But now, my dog is going nuts back here. Now, I believe it's Lamborghini. Is it Lamborghini? And Lamborghini is actually a company that's working along with Chrysler, or I think actually Lamborghini bought Chrysler. I'm not sure how that whole thing went down. It confuses me. It makes my head hurt. But basically, as soon as the Fiat came to the United States, again, they started advertising. You started seeing commercials for it. Then next thing you know it, Hot Wheels has a Fiat, little miniature Fiat. I actually have one of those. I mean, so the advertising is there. It actually makes people want to buy the product. It's like, oh man, this little car is pretty cool looking. Let me go get the real thing, right? Especially now that the market is wide open for cars that have low gas mileage. Just like now is wide open for a time where people are getting tired of video games. They want something that they can play with their family. They want something they can pass down to their children. They want something that, you know, they don't have to keep updating every so often. Let me get a little sip while the dog is going nuts over this bone. All right, back to what I was saying. Okay. Yeah, you have to advertise the product. It doesn't matter how good your product is. If you never advertise it and nobody knows it exists, you can't sell it. So that's the whole problem. They never advertised fantasy. Not to the level that they advertised 40K. I mean, there's a couple of models that I painted there, just a little bit, just a small amount of them. But anyway, I like chaos. Anyway, they never really push their product, and when you don't push your product won't sell. Okay. Have you ever been to a car dealership where you go out there and you're walking around the car dealership and you're looking at the cars and no one ever comes out there to talk to you about the car or even tries to sell it to you? What are you most likely going to do? You're most likely going to walk off the car lot and try to find another car lot that probably maybe sells the same product, or maybe even buy a product, an entirely different car from a different manufacturer. Wine is so good. But yeah, and I never really thought about it in this way. I've been did Game Workshop, did the business arm, did they actually go to school, or did they just like, you know what, we're gonna make models and sell? I mean, if I never marketed my art, my paintings on the internet, I wouldn't sell anything. I wouldn't sell any of my paintings at all. They would just sit in my house. But anyway, here's Space Hulk. I believe this was a 90s game. Might have been, yeah, back in the 90s, this game came out. This is the first glimmer of advertising for Space Marines, or 40K. It's Space Hulk. EA Games made it. They had it on 3DO. If anybody remembers what 3DO was, it's a video game system. Here's Fire Warrior, another game. They made that for PlayStation, computer, and Xbox. So if you wanted a first-person shooter and you bought this game, you're like, wow, where did this lore come from? Let me go and do some research and find out where. Oh, look, there's a box game. It's a tabletop game. What's a tabletop game? Let me try this out. Here's Space Hulk on for the computer back in the 80s. This goes back to the 80s, I believe, or it might have been like early 80s. It was before the advent of the internet. I know that much because look, it's right underneath, Hulk Hogan over there. Here's Space Hulk for PlayStation. Yeah, I mean, they actually advertise 40K because this is a form of advertisement. This is a form of communication. It's a form of media. Okay, video games are a form of media that you can actually use to advertise another entirely different product. Not entirely different, but the same product in name. Here's another Space Hulk game. I mean, for the PS Vita. I mean, come on. How many games for Warhammer Fantasy is on the PS Vita? Or How many games of Warhammer, regular fantasy Warhammer, is on, you know, the PlayStation 1 or, you know, the 3DO, you know, a Sega, you know, a Sega system, you know. This is the problem. They never advertised fantasy. They kind of threw fantasy out there and just left it out there. Here's more. Here's Dawn of War. That's another form of advertisement on the computer side, strategy games. A lot of people like strategy games. My favorite first strategy game was Command and Conquer. Then my next strategy game that I ever played was Dawn of War. And then it was like every time I played Dawn of War, I was like, man, I think I need to go buy another Predator tank. All right, now here's the price. This is the other problem. Prices were too high for fantasy models. You don't advertise your product, and then you make the prices exceedingly high. Here's a regiment of Kings of War skeletons. $20, and you get, was that 15 skeletons? It looks like 15 skeletons. $25.99. Now, this product is actually dropped in price. It's a fire sale, and it's $25.99 for 10 skeletons, not 15 like Kings of War, 10. So let me get this straight. It's actually cheaper to get 15. Here's another one. $35 for 20. Now, $35 can get you quite a bit in Kings of War, as you'll see in just a second. More wine. This is what you get for the $35, around $35. You get the regiment of 15 with the catapult and come on. Which would you rather have? Some zombies or a catapult and some skeletons? At least you're getting something out of this, really. I mean, some zombies, you need at least 60 zombies. Look, $169 for all of that. Some people want to say, hey, the models for GW, they're not overpriced. Their price is the same as everything else. Really? You'll see something else. Hold on. More wine. They're forcing me to drink here. $125 for one model. So you're telling me for about $40 more, let's call it 50, I can get all of that other stuff that you just saw in that last picture. And you're saying Games Workshop models are not overpriced. Look, Kings of War, Undead Revenant Cavalry. Now, most people had a Black Knight bust last edition in 8th edition. They weren't that cheap. There's going to be more.